Hello. Yes, good. Excellent. We're in. We're 2 minutes early for the meeting, but that's good because, hi Carlo, and you can see there everybody that Passion for Hair Limited, that's Declan. He's supporting in the background, not in the early bird gets the worm, of course. He's supporting, we're not in the same house. But he's in his own house and he's supporting the webinar. We're just waiting for hi Georgia and Matt and Francesca, and I'm sure that Zara and Scarlett are probably around. Hi Constance, hi Evie, nice to see you. Chloe, I'm glad we got you in this time, Chloe. Hi Marcus, good to see you. Dee, yeah, Lucy, hi. Good to see you all. We're just waiting for a few people to get in. Claire, hi. Jackie, hi. Good to see you. Alex, hello. Good to see you all. Joe, hi, Joe. Good. We're just getting some people in the room. Pask, hi. Good to see you. Good to see you. I can see Marie. Good to see you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And a few of you were on Andy's cutting some razor cutting webinar this morning. You had the volume off. Okay, well, yeah, it helps. Unless you can lip read me, helps to have the volume on. Yeah, so it was great, wasn't it? Andy was amazing. Really fantastic. Yeah, it was good. So we got lots of really good webinars. And we're really getting the hang of it. I mean, literally, this is new for us, and so we're learning at our learning curve right now is like this, but we're learning really a lot of good stuff, as I'm sure you are getting onto these webinars. Okay, so we've got a fair few people on, and it's 3 o'clock, so we can get going. I am going to start by saying at the end of the presentation, we are going to have a Q&A. You can type your question at any time. What Declan's going to do is there's actually a question board, as it were. He's going to clip them to the question board, and then we can address them all at the end. If you want to ask a question, if you look down at the bottom of your screen where you're typing, the chat is, can you see that you've got a little question mark and a little speech bubble? If it's a question, then write it with the question mark. Actually, when you do your question, if you write the question and put question mark, it automatically goes into question mode. When you are chatting, and chatting is great, we love it. Lots of people are getting a ton of stuff out of the chat, so that's good. So please do chat, but try and keep it in the chat mode for us, okay? So after you've asked the question, you might have to go back to the chat mode. If you make a mistake with it, it's okay. It's not an exam. But what we've come to learn is that for the presenters, it's much easier when it's all done in that way. Otherwise, for the presenters, we're trying to read all the chat, read all the questions. And what is the weather like where you are, Georgia? The sun has just come out. And when I'm finished this webinar, we're going for a long, long walk in the sunshine. So that's so thank you for asking. What's it like where you are? I was with someone. I was on I had a Passion for Hair. I had a team meeting this morning, and of course, where some of them where they live, South Milton Keynes, the sun was shining, and here it wasn't. So the weather's lovely. It's good. Well, we like that. So male grooming is not tomorrow. If you can take that down, Declan. It's not tomorrow, is it? No, it's next Friday, I believe. Okay, so let us get going with our presentation today. So this is a repeat. Well, it's not. It's the same again. It's not a repeat. And for those of you that were here on Wednesday with me and have joined again today, you're getting the information twice. I saw Matt. Declan will answer Pask's question. So Matt posted this morning, and he said you can only take so much information, and so doing it again, you get more information. And of course, when it's being done live like this, the information is often delivered in a different way. So we all know that you can never hear things too much, really, until you become the master of it, as it were. And then, of course, that's all good. Anyway, so let's get going. And this is I see, the afternoon version. Okay. So PM, I thought, what's she talking about? Prime Minister or something? Okay. So of course, when we're coming to these webinars, one of the things I started by saying on Wednesday was that, I'm sure that people are still in that trying to find solutions mode, but that's not what this is about today. We're 2 weeks in. We've moved from social distancing to social isolation, as it were. Physically, we've never been more separated, but thanks to platforms like this one that we're on here, and our smartphones and the internet, you probably find that you're connecting more than ever, despite being remote. The increased social connection it's amazing because it's validating, it's distracting. We've got a lot of time on our hands, and it's often uplifting. One of the challenges, however, that we do face with all the links and information that people are sharing is that sometimes people are sharing their fears and anxieties, and and those things then are spreading. It's easy to become overwhelmed, and you might even sometimes crave for a little bit of emotional distance. And in fact, until today is the first time that I've actually gone onto my social media and looked at the social media. For the last 2 weeks, I distanced myself from it, and was only going onto my social media to manage it, as it were. So I was looking at things that people were tagging me in. But even then, people were tagging me in stuff that, quite frankly, I've not got the headspace for right now. So, I want to keep focused. That emotional distance. The management of our well-being and the balance of our well-being and our leadership needs careful adjustment, because the things that we're used to doing and the way that we're used to doing things, we can't do it that way. We're having to do things very, very differently. So we're having to make lots of adjustments to our lives, and it's really very important that we make those adjustments as quickly as we can, right, for our own well-being. And if you listen to some of my lives, you would have heard me say that it's really important that we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. So this particular webinar is called Leadership Begins with a Capital I, and Declan will help Stephen there, please, if you would, Declan. Leadership begins with a capital I, and I'm going to ask you for some feedback here. What do you think inspired me to this title of this webinar? What do you think? Yep, so Carly put lead by example. That's exactly right. Lead by example. What else? Keep it coming. You can see some people typing. Really good. Here we go. Sharon, yeah, it begins with yourself. It does. You can't lead others, until you can lead yourself well. Our teams and our peers need a leader, in these times. We crave leadership. So that's really good. If it's got to be me. I love that, Marcus. That was a program that we did a few years ago, right? But yeah, if it's got to be me. That's quite right. The best skill a leader can grow is the ability to handle uncertainty. And in these times, uncertainty is really like it's the main thing that we've got. So we as leaders have an incredible responsibility, but also a great opportunity to demonstrate how we show up when we're tested, and we're being tested right now. So in some circumstance, and this is one of them, theory is just not enough. It's not enough to get us through the tests of life and business. And, we've got to really, we've got to seek answers, we've got to seek information. We've got to really dig deep into all of our resources, every resource that we're having to dig deep into. So usually in a crisis, leaders go into solution mode. That's like an automatic instinct, if you like, pulling on what you already know and what you've previously experienced to set a plan. So, when this whole thing started, I sat down, I'm a note taker. I write notes, everywhere and anywhere. So, I started making some notes. And here's like the little list of things that I thought, right, in a crisis, what is it I've done previously that has really helped me? And I'm going to share with you that list, right? So here was in the first instance, my crisis to-do list. First on the list, work harder and do more hours. Work harder, do more hours, like really get your head down. And, well, I can't really do that at the moment. I mean, actually, as it happens, I've got to tell you that we are very busy, but we're busy doing very, very different stuff. And it's not really stuff that long-term is going to sustain our business, right? I'm sure you guys are all the same. So that's not an option. The second one on the list, take more money, find strategies for increasing income. Well, that too is not really possible. And so, we have to look a little bit further than that. The third one, let's get marketing for new clients. Let's use social media, leaflets. Yeah, leafleting, it still works really well for my business. Advertising, how can I get the message out there and how can I engage people? Well, we can, of course, take part in, marketing and looking for new clients, etc., etc. And actually, I've got to tell you that we have made, both in Passion for Hair and in Feathers, we've made some real good connections with people we've never done business with. In fact, Passion for Hair got 2 new accounts this week. So, but at the end of this is producing revenue for us in the immediate term, right? If we are able to keep those connections going, then in the long term it might. But it's not going to solve the problem very well. We'd be thinking, right, what upgraded services can I do? What new services can I do? How can I enhance the experience? How do we increase the average per client on the income? Well, again, none of these things can be done. So, and then lastly on the list, motivate and train the team, keep morale high. Now, that is something that we're able to do. And I hope you guys, I put the tissues here earlier and now they're gone. I hope you guys, are connecting with your team and keeping morale high. And I do hope that your team are engaging in the many, many opportunities to upskill, their knowledge and their technical skills as well, and really keep their hand in. And this is important because think about when people go on holiday for 2 weeks, when you come back, it's you do have to get back in the rhythm of things, don't you? And we're going to be off, more than 2 weeks. And so it's really quite important that we keep connected and everybody doesn't go back, feeling a stranger or feeling that they've lost their momentum or their rhythm. It's really important to do that. In a later webinar, when we talk about team, managing the team, we're going to talk about some of the things, that happen when people are away for long terms. Like, for an example, when people go on holiday, they either come back to work, right, really motivated to really get stuck in and do it. Or sometimes, you may have experienced people come back from holiday and then they decide that they want to change what they're doing. They want a career change, or they want to change and go and work in another salon. And that's because people have had periods of reflection. So, that's something that we need to manage quite well. Why leadership? Why is it so important at this time? Well, we already discussed, that it's our responsibility. If you are a leader, and we're all leaders. I mean, if you're a parent, you're a leader. If you're a salon owner, you're a leader. If you're one of the team members in the salon, you also have a responsibility towards leadership. And the more of us that take up that responsibility, the more successful we all are. So, and we already discussed that. And I can see Janine's question there. Just in case anybody's joined us after we said earlier, all the questions are going on the board. So do ask your questions and we will be answering them. That's a really good question. I've got some good answers for you. So what's important for us to remember is that leaders can inspire or demoralize, depending on how your leadership is. And firstly, we can inspire people or demoralize by how effectively we manage our own energy. So, great leaders, as we said earlier, it's about example. So it's managing our own energy. And is that radio? I left the radio on. I shouldn't have done that, should I? And if that's bothering anybody in the background, don't worry. Daniel's going to come in the room in a minute and he's going to turn that off. Here he comes. So, let me go over that again because it was distracting me too. The news came on. Thank you, Daniel. And if you would just pass me that tissue box over there on your way, close the door quietly as you go out. Thank you. So, first, by how effectively we manage our own energy, but also how well we immobilize, focus, invest, and renew the collective energy of the team. So, this is something that's really quite important. And here are the elements, right, of that energy when we're talking about leadership. And the first one, there's the first one, physically energized, right? So we need to be physically energized in order to be able to do the job. That's really very important. Secondly, emotionally connected, and that's why that connectedness is really important. People are connecting, and so it's really imperative, that we keep everyone connecting together. Passion for Hair, we had a team meeting this morning. It was great. We just got everybody to talk about what they'd done over the last week, and people really had a lot of questions. When they finished work. And they were in their flow of their lives, right? For an example, Claudia, one of our employees, she just moved house. And so people were saying, oh, Claudia, have you been able to get any decorating done? And I'm sitting there and I'm watching their interactions, which ordinarily might irritate me in the office, I've got to say, right? But, I was so pleased to see them interacting and catching up like that together. So that connection, really very important. Intellectually focused. So, when we talk about the energy of the team, everyone's got to be focused on the job in hand, on the purpose, and of course, spiritually aligned. And I'm going to address this now at this point because often people look at, the word spiritually, and traditionally, if you like, it's often been associated with religion. And, the last few decades, it's not been very very popular, you know, to be religious. It's, and for some people, you know, they actually want to distance themselves, or they do distance themselves quite a lot from that. So often people look at spiritually and they think, oh, well, that's not me because it's to do with religion and I don't really want that. But the spiritually part is really very important, because it's actually an innate human, not just an innate human need, it's an innate part of our makeup, right? It's a very important part of our makeup, and it's one of the pieces that actually doesn't get managed very well, doesn't get serviced very well. And so actually we're going to talk about that quite a bit today. We're going to look at it like this. So we're going to imagine in those 4 areas, they're like reservoirs. And the reason for that is that what happens to us as we are expending energy in any of these areas, as we're expending energy in any of these areas, the reservoir is emptying slightly. And we have to do things to replenish that particular reservoir. And then those 4 reservoirs are connected. And so we have to then keep them balanced. So we've got to keep the balance of each reservoir individually working well. And then we've got to keep the balance of them all together working well. That's what we're going to explore today. So the 4 reservoirs, they go like this. The physical reservoir, as we said before. The emotional reservoir. The intellectual reservoir, and then the spiritual reservoir. So these are the reservoirs that we've got, and how we manage these really helps key our effectiveness. Now, new skill I've learned this week. Ordinarily, if we were in a room together, I would go to the flip chart right now to demonstrate this particular piece that I want to demonstrate, but I'm going to do it instead on what is called here the whiteboard. So here comes the whiteboard. Bear with me, because as I say, it's a brand new skill of mine. Here we go. So I want to show you, I'm going to draw a line here like this. Now this line is representing physical, okay? Physical. And this line, I'm going to draw another line here. Here we go. This line here, hope some of you have got pen and paper. You're making a little note of this, or when the diagram's finished, you can take a picture of it. Feel free. So that one there, this is the emotion line, okay? So this is a physical line. This is emotion line. And what we've created here is a grid. On the physical, we have here, now what we want to do is we want to turn that to text. Oh, I don't know, I can. Over here, this is high. Down here, this is low. So we've got high energy, we've got low energy. Everybody's with me so far? And then on the emotional line, runny nose, that's a good thing, guys, right? That's not one of the, over here, this is the emotion line. And over here on the left, we've got negative, okay? And over here, we've got the opposite, which is positive. Okay, so what we've got there, we've got this little diagram. We've created a grid. We've got physical, high, low. We've got emotions, positive and negative. And what we've done is we've turned these 4 quadrants into little categories of their own. So I'm going to start with the high positive, right? This is the one that's most important to us right now. When we are in high positive, so our energy is physically high, and emotionally positive, this is what we can expect. So we're going to feel invigorated. We're going to feel confident. I'm typing as I'm saying this. We're going to feel challenged. We're going to feel joyful. And we're going to feel connected. All good things to be right now. Okay? If we look at, we're going to look now at positive low. Positive low. Positive low. Look at this one. This is really, I've had so many conversations with people about this over the last few days. I cannot begin to tell you. Because right now, a lot of people are probably not salon owners, but a lot of people are, although I did speak to one salon owner who's feeling like this. They've had their grant already. But when we're in the low positive, we're feeling relaxed, mellow. Where's it gone, Declan? Bring it back. Don't make me type it again. Have I got to type it again? I can't hear him. Wait a minute. Have I got to type that again, Declan? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Just turning the sound off because otherwise I get an echo back at myself. Okay. Type it again. Relaxed. Mellow. Peaceful. I mean, are you finding this? I'm getting quite frustrated at times, right? Because I am really, I think everybody here knows I've got 9 businesses. I employ about 80 people. It's been really a very stressful time. We're trying to understand everything. And there's a part of me that's a little frustrated that everyone else is at home having this kind of like period of holiday. And frankly, I've never been busier, but that's not quite true, but you won't understand what I'm trying to say. So low positive, there's nothing wrong with low positive. It's actually part of when we talk about, rejuvenating our reservoirs. Actually, low positive is an area where we're able to do that. And that's, of course, what a lot of people are doing, and that's good. But long term, of course, that's not, a good place to be. Now, let's have a look at this low negative. Low negative, depressed, exhausted, burned out, hopeless, and defeated. Okay. So I've put hopeless there. Are you able to correct that, Deck? Or is that not possible to correct? We'll see if he can. That's supposed to say hopeless, not hopless. Yep, thank you. So then when we look at the high negative, okay, we've got angry, fearful. I spoke to a salon owner this morning who is really angry. They're not in this country. They're in a country which is actually about 2 weeks behind us. Resentful. And I told that person, I promise you, you'll move from where you are, right? So high negative, angry, fearful, anxious, defensive, resentful. So what this does is this gives us an opportunity to understand a little bit about how those reservoirs are connected, right? And we can now hopefully, I've got a bracelet on and it's hitting my mic. Possibly. So is it still happening? It's happening. Yeah, that's when it's happening, right? Yeah, okay. I'll take them off. Okay. I haven't taken these bracelets off for a long time. They were gifts from dear friends. But there you go, they're off. So we can see how they're connected, right? How they're all interconnected. We can also see how they deplete and how they fill up. And they're really good examples when we talk about physical and emotion, because they're the two that are easiest for us to identify with. And I'm sure already you're kind of thinking about examples of people or situations yourself where you have felt these different types of emotions, or in these different grids, as it were. So let's have a look then at these reservoirs, and how we, let's really get into some detail of it. I've got to, wait a minute, I've got to slip. Yeah, thank you, Declan. I didn't move from there to there. Okay, so let's look at the physical reservoir. The first and most obvious thing about the physical reservoir is the food. Of course, the quality of food. We know we are what we eat. And what do we do when we are feeling a little bit like you may have done over the last couple of weeks, right? Anxious, stressed, you've had a hard day, etc., etc. What are some of the things that we do that are linked to quality of food? When you're stressed, what do? Give me some feedback. Yep, you turn to your comfort food. Yep, what kind of food is comfort food? Yeah, we eat sugar. Yes, we do. We crave sugar, wine, carbs, chocolate, right? Now, cake. Yep. Now, all of these things, you eat things that you wouldn't normally eat, or things that you know that you shouldn't eat. And there's nothing wrong with those things in moderation. But the problem is, let's think about this. If we, if our emotional reservoir is empty, right, and then we eat this kind of stuff, what does that do? Does it fill our emotional reservoir? No, not really. It's kind of satisfying for a little while, but then it's also depleting the physical one. So the quality of food is very important. And on the same token, with many of you finding that you've got more time on your hands, you may find that you are cooking better and eating better, and that's good. And then the other thing, of course, is the amount of food, right? So some people, when they're stressed, eat a lot, and some people, when they're stressed, lose their appetite and don't eat enough, and that's not good either. So those things are really, they're the most important thing. And in there as well is water. In the food category is water. And it doesn't matter what research you follow, what diet you follow, everything you will read will tell you that in terms of water, you need to be having 2 litres a day. 2 litres of water a day is really important. And one of the reasons for that, not just for the physical, so that I can keep showing you how these, or keep demonstrating how these things are making a difference in these reservoirs, is that when we are properly hydrated, that's when the brain works. So that would be the intellectual, of course, right? The brain works through this electrical activity. Our brain is full of electrical activity, right? And when we're hydrated, it works better. When we are dehydrated, those electrical connections are slower, and in some respects, in some aspects, they can't connect at all. So keeping hydrated, really, really, very, very important. So that's the first foundation one. Let's talk about the second one. So physically, and we're going to talk a little bit later about, I'm going to demonstrate exactly what makes this really very important and how it connects. But in the first instance, let's talk about how we should work in chunks of 90 to 120 minutes and then take 10 to 20 minute breaks. Now, when we do this, it creates a rhythm of the day, okay? It creates a rhythm. And this rhythm, I'm going to make a reference to it a couple of times, this rhythm's really very important. I've got such an itchy nose, I can't tell you. I wish it was an itchy palm. It would mean that money's coming. I've got, so these rhythms are really very, very important. So try and think about that, how you work in these periods of 90 to 120 minutes with these 10 to 20 minute breaks. The next thing is breathing. So physically, the breathing is very, very important. And and making sure that we get oxygen right down into the abdomen is very important. Now, of course, let's think about this for a second. So when we are feeling a little bit burned out or a little bit, low, a little bit on the low negative, right? What do? We slump on the sofa or we slump in the chair, right? And then the air is not able to get to the abdomen. If you caught my lives that I was doing, I spoke there about this breathing technique 478, which is a very popular technique that they advise people to have for anxiety, but it's really good for stress. And here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to tell you how it works, and then I'll demonstrate it. But I've got to tell you first, because whilst I'm actually doing it, I can't speak. But how it works is this. We take air in through our nose for a count of 4. We hold that air inside and try and get that air deep down into your abdomen. We hold it for 7, and then we blow it out through the mouth for 8. Okay, and if you want to do it with me, by all means do it with me. I can't see any of you, but it'd be great if you take part. But here's how it goes. We do it like this. Now, anybody that did that with me, give me some feedback. How does it make you feel how you've done after you've done that 478 breathing technique? I can see someone typing, a few people, thank you, typing. Interaction's good. Yeah, instantly better. Mags, she said she loves that. Yeah, it makes you feel calm. Yeah, 2 people, 3 people there said calming. Absolutely, it's how it is. And the technique says that you should do it 4 times. Right, so actually you do that 4 times. It's really, really quick. Alex said he needed to breathe out for longer than 8 seconds. Okay, if you need to, that's fine, but make sure that you breathe it out for at least 8. Constance said she feels lighter, refreshed, clears the head instantly, and that is exactly what happens. That breathing technique, when you do it 4 times, it triggers relaxation, which of course, when we're talking about the balance of the reservoirs, it's the opposite of being stressful or anxious, right? Stressful or anxious is in the low negative. And being able to be relaxed and more tranquil, that's in the low positive, okay? So it triggers relaxation, it quiets the mind, and it quietens the body and the emotions, okay? So it's working on a lot of reservoirs. So when we talk about physical, if we are feeling ourselves getting high, negative, right, then it's easy to do that and to calm ourselves down a little bit. And what we are actually doing is we're balancing those reservoirs. And then here's the last one on physical, and this is a really important one. And I'm going to have a little confession on this one, okay? The most important renewal is the sleep renewal. Now, I have been, for years, I've been somebody who survives on 5 or 6 hours of sleep. And one of the things that that has now been proved, wait a minute, I didn't want to do that, is that we should have 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. It's the most important renewal, 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. Declan will put a link up here for us. There you go. Daniel, actually, and those of you that know my husband Daniel know that he's a health and fitness fanatic, right? He loves health and fitness, and that's great. He does a lot of research. He follows a lot of experts, etc. He does a lot of exercise and activities himself. Anyway, and sleep is your superpower. If you want to know more about getting good quality sleep, then look at some of Matt Walker's work. But one of the things that he says is that we know there are stages of sleep, okay? If you wake up too early, then you are often breaking the most important part of the sleep. So when we sleep, we go into sleep, and then there are these phases where we go deeper and deeper and deeper. And if we don't get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, then we are not getting the renewal that we need. So this is an area that I'm working on myself right now, and trying to make sure, while we're going for a long walk later, making sure that I get enough sleep. It's really very very important. So when I was speaking earlier about the ebbs and flows, right? The 90 to 120 minutes and the 10 and 20 minute breaks. And I said to you, it links to many other things, and it's so important. When we work in these rhythms during the day, whatever it is that we're doing, when we have these chunks and we create these rhythms, those rhythms are taken into our sleep pattern too. So those rhythms during the day help the sleep pattern. So a very, very important point for us to understand and take on board with our own energy management. So that's the physical. The second one is the emotional. Let's have a look at the emotional. So the EQ is the ability to manage emotions skillfully, to achieve high positive energy and therefore full engagement. So what we're looking at there is we're saying, okay, when we talk about EQ, we're talking about self-confidence. So our own self-confidence, it radiates. When we're not feeling confident, it radiates that we're not feeling that way, and that energy that we radiate affects other people. Of course, it's because we're sitting in the wrong grid. The second thing, of course, is self-control. So our ability to be able to manage our reactions to things and make sure that we have the correct reactions. The next one is the interpersonal effectiveness. So this is our effectiveness when working with others. And in our industry, this is imperative. If you work in an office, it's really easy to sit behind your desk, sit behind your screen and kind of isolate yourself temporarily. But in our industry, it's it's not possible. So that interpersonal effectiveness is really very important. And then lastly on this list is empathy. Empathy, of course, is the ability to live in other people's shoes. And that's a very important part of the emotional, because if we don't have the ability to live in other people's shoes, to have empathy with people, then what happens is that we actually start to feel resentful of those people, right? Because they don't agree with us. We think they're wrong about something. So that empathy is a very, very important emotional skill for yourself. Somebody had asked the question earlier about the difference between leaders who inspire and leaders who demoralize. And one of those parts is right there. We'll come back to it when we get to that question. But I just wanted to point, I'd seen that question come up, and I just wanted to point that out. That's an important part, because if we, it was Michelle, thank you. So if we, if we have not got a good balance of these things, then it has a knock-on effect to other people. Now, sometimes when we're stressed, right, these are the exact things that suffer, because it's difficult for us to focus on those things. So we've got to remember that to perform at our best, we've got to be able to access pleasant and positive emotions, the experience of enjoyment, challenge, adventure and opportunity. Negative emotions, like they serve our instincts. So negative emotions are good when we have to use those for survival, as it were, but they're at a cost. Negative emotions drain energy. So when we are, think about when your heart's been broken, right? Your heart's been broken. How do you feel? I mean, you feel So without doing any physical energy, you feel physically burned out, right? Because the emotional is affecting so much. So the art of effective leadership is the ability to communicate and summon positive emotions during periods of intense stress. That's really very important. In fact, I think I might even have put it on the slide. There we go. To perform at our best, we must access positive and pleasant and positive emotions. Any activity that you enjoy serves recovery and renewal with the emotions. Think about it. Spending time with loved ones. If you like to go to the gym, if you like to go to the swimming pool, if you like to play ice hockey, like my husband, who on Wednesday was like, I mean, he was like a bear with a sore. He plays ice hockey on Wednesdays. He was like a bear with a sore head on Wednesday. And I said to him, what's wrong? And he said, I'm really missing ice hockey, right? Because it's what he likes to do and it drains emotionally. Now, what's very important for us to understand is that none of us can do these things at the moment. So whatever it is that we like to do, we're not able to do. So we must find, when I talked earlier about adjustment, that's why we must find other things to do. Really very important that we do that. We've got to make those periods of adjustments. No good just sitting there and waiting for our old life to come back. That's not going to be a good strategy. You will not, you're not going to show up as the best leader you can be, if you're doing these things. So let's have a look at the intellectual reservoir. Now, let's get really focused here, because the physical one and the emotional one, they're the easiest ones, right? The ones that are more difficult to really tap into and to really make good effect on are the intellectual and the spiritual. So let's take a look at the intellectual for a second. Now, the intellectual part of our energy, if you like, is where realistic optimism is the energy that best serves high positive, right? And notice there that I say realistic optimism. I mean, if you're not realistic with your optimism, you're not fooling anyone else, and you're absolutely not fooling yourself, right? Because one of the things about intellectual, which is everything that's going on in our head, at the end of the day, the last person that you connect with, you put your head on the pillow, the last person you connect with is yourself, right? So you can't fool yourself, and most of the time you're not fooling others. So it's got to be realistic optimism. If we can't be optimistic, then we have to work on those reservoirs to get ourselves back there again. And how we might do that will be being in the low positive. Okay, you're never going to do it being in the low negative, and you're never going to do it being in the high negative, right? So we've got to get ourselves into the low positive in order to get to the high positive. Okay, so the intellectual energy, this is how we organize our lives. This is how we work out what we're supposed to be doing, what we are doing, what we're going to do. And it's in array. It's in disarray at the moment. I wake up sometimes. I don't remember what day it is. We've had people. I've had numerous people who have missed, different webinars and activities because they literally lost track of the time. Some days I feel like the time has gone so quickly, and then other days I can look at the time and say, "Is that all it is? 2:00?" It's going so. And that is, where we are. We're all, adjusting to a different way, a new way of life. So it's the part where we organise our lives, right? It's also the part that helps us to focus attention to the job in hand. Now, one of the difficulties for many people when we've been worrying about how we're going to pay our bills, etc., one of the it's difficult to focus, to the job in hand, right? Or the job in hand becomes something that actually you can't find a solution to right now. It's not possible. And so you find yourself kind of stuck and you can't move on to something else. So we've got to see the world for what it is, but we've got to work positively towards the right solution for ourselves. So I'm not suggesting that's easy, right? But that's what you've got to do. So if you're having a difficult moment, you have to say, I've got to move towards that high positive. I've got to find a way to find the solution and get into that that high positive. It's really important for us to understand that it's really what facilitates creativity, right? Our intellectual is what helps us there. Now, practicing changing mental channels to activate different parts of the brain and facilitate creativity. Let me give you a couple of exercises for this. A fair few years ago, I'm going to say probably about 15 years ago, I was very, very fortunate to be able to go and study how the brain learns in Chicago with one of the world's greatest professors on brain learning. And I learned these things then, how to connect the brain. We all know that we have two sides of the brain. We have a left and a right side of the brain, and the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body, and the right side of the brain connects the left side of the body. So here is one real simple exercise that you can do at any point when you want to change your mental channel and you want to be able to increase your creativity or think about things in a different way or find a new thinking channel. I have to take my glasses off for it, which means I can't see, like everything here will now just be a blur, but it's because you have to see my eyes. It's so simple and it works like this. You can do it with me if you want to. Make sure I take my hair out my eyes. So basically you put your eyes right up at top right like this, okay, just for a couple of seconds, and then you bring the eyes down and you put them up top left, and you bring them down, and you put the eyes top right and bring them down, and then you put them again top left and bring them down. And when you do that, and for those of you that did it with me, right, or are still doing it, tell me what's happening. What do you feel? What's happening? What's happening? Here we go. Milka feels dizzy. Sally Ann feels clearer. Yeah, clearer. Yeah, the head feels clearer, right? Isn't it weird how the head feels clearer? With dizzy, sometimes when I do it, it feels like exercise, but for the eyes. Yeah, sometimes when I do it, after I finish doing it, I can almost see little white, like fireflies or fairies in front of my eyes. They go quite quickly, but it's almost like I can see the electrical. I just don't even know, but I get that sometimes. Did anyone get that, where they saw like little white bits flashing? Yeah, like little stars. It's so interesting. There's another exercise. I'm just going to sit back from the table a little bit, but it really works on the same phenomena, but it's where we just take your finger as if it's a pencil, and then just draw and follow have your eyes follow your finger, right? And you literally draw like a figure of 8, right? And you do this, okay? It's a similar exercise, does the same thing, and it's really connecting the left and the right side of the brain together, okay? That's what it's doing. If you teach people, this is a really good thing to get people to do periodically, right? And then you stop. Now, again, anybody that's done it with me, once you stop, how do you feel? We're sitting in a chair and we're doing it, but how does it make you feel? Yeah, much clearer. I like that one. You feel energized, you feel lighter. Yeah, have the kids do it before homeschooling. It's a really good thing to do. The room got wider. Yeah, it's interesting how it really does wake the brain up. There's another one. Actually, the kids might like this one because because the side of the brain connects to the left side of the body, the left side of the left side of the brain to the right side of the body. If you're right-handed, that is engaging the left side of your brain. So you take a piece of paper and some crayons and you just draw something and do some doodles or whatever it is that you want to do. And then you swap the pencil into the other hand and then you do a similar thing. It's not a test. Of course, you won't be able to get what you do with your right hand. If you're right-handed, what you do with your right hand, you won't be able to do with your left hand. But it means that you are... it just means that you are engaging both sides of the brain. Now, once you've done that, add a little bit of breathing activity. Give yourself a 10-minute break. Go and get a glass of water, a cup of tea. You'll be completely energized and ready for the next 90, 120 minutes of whatever activity it is that you're having to do. So that is showing us how all of the reservoirs are working together. So I think it's really important to understand, right, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, negative thoughts lead to looking for energy renewal in the wrong place, right? We talked about it earlier. Fast food, alcohol, even worse things than alcohol. I'm not even going to say it. But for some people as well, it's prolonged sleep. So, sometimes you'll see people, getting 12 hours sleep, 13 hours sleep. That's not good. That is a sign of low negative. Thinking takes up a lot of energy. Thinking takes up a lot of energy. So this is where we get the sayings from. Don't overthink things, right? Or sometimes people are driving themselves mad because they are thinking things. But on the plus side, right, if you give your mind a little bit of rest and give it a little reset, this is sometimes when you get your best ideas, right, because you get some clear thinking. And it reminds me a little bit of a great great technique that I know that some of the people on here already use, that we got from our great friend and mentor, Don Bewley, where he taught us a strategy that he called 2-4, right? 2-4. He said 2-4 it. Give it 24 of whatever it needs. Give it 24 seconds. You might be able to make a decision after 24. 24 minutes, 24 hours, could be 24 days. But 2-4 it, right? So we called 2-4 in it. If you work with me, you'll hear me say it a lot of times where I say, I need to 2-4 that, right? That means I might be gone 24 minutes. I could be gone 24 hours, right? It's where we say, let me sleep on it overnight. But I could be 24 days, right? Sometimes people come to me, Milka's on here. We've got a project right now. Milka's been going on and on at me. I need a decision. They're chasing me, and I said, I'm not ready to make a decision. I will never make a decision until I'm ready. Oh, Brittany, hello. Brittany's on from Canada. So that's the intellectual. See, I told you the intellectual was important. I've got 2 pages of notes for that one. So, there it is. Thinking uses up a lot of energy. That's what it was. Here is the second page. Avoiding the truth uses up a great deal of energy, right? So trying to rationalize things and trying to place the blame elsewhere. This is something, and I'm sure that many of us are experiencing that right now, where we're trying to rationalize things and trying to think about, whose fault and who should, and whatever it is. Let's know that takes up a great deal of energy. Denial numbs pain, but it stops us from being engaged. So when we're in denial, sticking our head in the sand, right? That's really what we're talking about. It does numb the pain, but it stops us from being engaged. And therefore, if we're not engaged, we're not finding the solution. So, and then accepting our limitations reduces our defensive,ness and opens us up to new information and ideas. And that's when we move into high positive. So sometimes, you know, and particularly in times like this, I mean, I've had, you know, people asking me questions where I've said to them, I don't know the answer, because, you know, I'm accepting my limitation, as many of us are. So once we do that, it stops us from being defensive, and then we can start to look for new solutions. So let's now look at the spiritual. So this is the one that most people find really quite difficult because of what I said earlier, where people have this tendency, you know, to link it, you know, to religion, and that's not what it is at all. We all have a spiritual being. There is a spiritualist. There has to be a spiritualness about us, every single one of us. So if you are somebody who feels like, oh no, you know, I don't like religion, I'm not into that kind of stuff, that's not for me, this actually is the area that maybe you should start first, right? So being spiritual is actually being connected to a set of deeply held values. So, you know, our beliefs form our values, the things we value. Now, right now, you know, we are all getting, it's quite incredible, you know, salon owners that were telling me not so long ago how much they, you know, don't like their salon. I want to sell my salon. I'm not sure this is for me. I think I might want to do something else. Hairdressers. Oh, I'm not sure I want to do hairdressing. Now suddenly everyone's, oh, get me back to my salon. Oh, I can't wait to do hair again, right? Because when we lose something, then we really value it. Well, so now's a really good time for us to be able to really check into those, you know, into those values. But that's our spirituality. So when we're talking about our spirituality, it's to do with our character, and character is who you are when no one is watching. And we spoke earlier, and one of the things that I said, of course, the last person that you check in with every day is yourself, right? When you put your head on the pillow, the first person that you check in with in the morning is yourself when you wake up. And so when we talk about character, when we've got people that are trying to live a character which is not them, that is draining for them, right? So they're fine when they're on the, you know, they're on show, they're on the stage, whatever it may be, but it becomes really very draining for them. And you know, they get burnout. It's not good. The next thing is the integrity. So integrity, the definition of integrity for me is really the courage to live by your values, even when doing so means personal sacrifice and hardship. And you know, this when we are not being true to our integrity, then what happens is it eats into the spiritualness. And it doesn't matter, you can try and protect your other reservoirs as much as you like, but you cannot break this connectivity. You know, what we have here, this is, you know, this is stuff of the universe. I mean, this is our DNA. This is the way we are. This is the way we are made, right? So we are not able to control these things. So the more preoccupied we are with our own fears and concerns, the less energy we have to take positive action. And of course, that's how a lot of people, you know, feel right now, and understandably so. And it's why the government have gone to great lengths to make people feel as secure as they possibly can. telling people to just stay at home. We're going to financially look after you. Every group of people, they've tried to make sure that we all know that there is some income coming. They've told landlords that they are not allowed during these periods to threaten people, with eviction or having to come out of their premises. They're going to look very badly on anybody that behaves like that. So that's because the government don't want us to be preoccupied with fears and concerns. They want us to try and feel secure in this time of really unprecedented crisis. And it's really what it is. Not just the health crisis, which is terrible, but we have a crisis of so many other aspects of our life, right? Just the disruption to our lives. The worry of our future. For some people, it's a leveler like we've never seen before, this situation, because, for people that have worked all their lives very hard, to now see to have themselves so out of control of what is happening to their destiny. It's very difficult for people. So other parts of the spiritual part is the spiritual part is a key driver towards purpose. And so when we don't service the spiritual side, we start to lose connection with our purpose, because let's say let's put it in context of our business, right? Whether we're a salon owner or we're a stylist, our business is it's our career. It's what we do to put a roof over our head, to put food on the table, to be able to have holidays and other nice things in our lifestyle that we like. So those things all become part of our purpose. Now, if we get distracted by the fact that, actually, it's all about money. If you become very money focused and you become disconnected from the purpose of being a hairdresser, is because I get a real thrill when I make people look and feel good, right? Which is a core purpose for any hairdresser. If you lose that, or you let that go for money, right, eventually you won't feel good about it. You'll start looking at the hair you're doing, you're going, I rushed that. There was no creativity in it. That client gave me a signal that really she's looking for a little bit of a change, but I'm so busy, trying to fit in as many clients as I can, etc., right? That's losing touch with our purpose. And the spiritualness also feeds into our desire. So we have to care deeply about what we do and those that we do it with. All of that feeds that spiritual part of us. Some people think it's the emotional part, and it has an effect on the emotional part from the spiritual part. By the same token, by the way, if you really dislike the people that you work with, you get to work and no one's even said anything to you, and how do you feel? You feel angry with people, right? No one's even said or done anything, and you're like, and it's because it's draining the reservoir. Spiritual is where we really get our passion and commitment from. And again, you see, people think this is the emotional part. No, it affects the emotional part, because remember what I said about the emotional part is that we feed the emotional with things things that give us pleasure, and that's where things that give us pleasure are things that are driven from our passion and commitment. So finding our passion, finding our commitment to things, all of these things are building that spiritual reservoir. And once we know that, a lot of the spiritual reservoir, if you're somebody who likes to sit down and put your thoughts on pieces of paper, that really builds the spiritual reservoir, right? Because you start writing things down, and what am I committed to? What are my passions? You start making those notes, you are filling that spiritual reservoir up. So it's not that it's difficult to feel, it's difficult to identify. And this is when we talk about intrinsic motivation, it's driven from the spiritual from the spiritual reservoir. So there are the 4 reservoirs, okay? We've talked about what depletes them, what fills them back up again, how they are interconnected, and we're understanding those things. So that is all good. What I want to do now is I want us to think about some lifestyle rituals which are connected around, around these reservoirs. You see, one of the... Okay, so this is an important point. A ritual doesn't require energy once it becomes automatic. So that's what makes a ritual so important. If you have to rely on willpower or discipline to do something, that in itself is taking up energy, right? And so we want to turn things into positive rituals, things that automatically happen in your life, and then you don't have to think about it too much. If you and then you don't have to motivate yourself to do it, because it's just part of like what you do. And if we don't have it as a ritual, then you have a choice, and then you start choosing not to do it. Right, and that might be happening to some people right now. You might be somebody who normally goes to the gym a lot, right? And you haven't been able to exercise very much at home because it's not what you normally do. So you've got to find a way to do it. Well, you must find that way to do it, because otherwise you're going to lose that ritual. But you've got to create a new ritual till you can have the old one back. Okay, so really very important to do that. When we talk about rituals, there you go, discipline and willpower require energy, right? The more challenges you face, the more important the rituals are, because if they're embedded as rituals, right, when the challenges are trying to distract us, we can't be distracted. So then we stay on top form. People often ask me, Debbie, I don't know how you do it. And all of how I do it is because, that there's certain things that I just do, or if I do feel that there's something in my life that is out of balance, right, and we're going to start talking about balance now, then I will work hard to get it back into balance by, really analysing, right, what is happening to me right now, and where do I need to be replenishing my reservoir, and what is the best way for me to be able to do that. So if a ritual seems to be stale or boring, or if you feel like it's not necessary anymore, it's probably no longer attached to your values or a compelling purpose. So remember, all the time, these things are being connected, and rituals only really work when it's something that you really value, or there's a compelling purpose to do it. So you have to think about those things. So if you sat down after this webinar, sit down and make a few notes of, what's a compelling purpose for me right now? What's something that I really, really value? That will help you decide what your rituals are. Let me give you an example. If right now you can't see your elderly relatives, right, or except through a window, you're probably really missing them. Well, a really good ritual would be telephoning them, twice a week, or visiting them every Sunday, something that maybe before you weren't valuing so much, right? But now, of course, we or FaceTime Pass just put up, right? So we're using FaceTime. Sometimes the internet's going really crazy, and it's because so many people are using it, I'm sure. So let's now talk about balancing stress and recovery, right? Because it's input. We can't make stress go away. We know that. Some things actually are good stress, right? So stress and recovery. This is important. The best way I can describe the importance of stress and recovery is really thinking about how muscles are built, right? So if you are somebody who loves to build muscle, so you go to the gym and you push weights, or however you build your muscle, what's that word I'm looking for, because I'm not one of these people. Muscle, someone's going to tell me what the word is in a second. Mass, thank you. If you like to build your muscle mass, right? Then here's what you do: is you go to the gym and you push weights or whatever machines are stressing your muscles, right? And you stress the muscles to the point that they burn. And by the way, even if you're into Pilates, you get this. Pilates is my exercise of choice, along with yoga, right? So you feel the burn, the pain, right? And you can feel it the next day. Now, what has happened is we have broken the fibers of that muscle. And then you go into recovery, and as the muscle repairs back together again, it repairs back with new fibers added, right? And that's how muscle mass is built. The same happens with every other part of our body. Muscles are a really good example because we can see them and feel them, and they're physical, right? But the same happens with the brain. When you really stretch the brain and then you relax it, the brain, the capacity of your being at your intellect, the capacity of you being able, your intelligence, your thinking, all of these things grow with the brain. The same is with the emotions, right? When your heart gets broken, you go into recovery, right? So you go into hopefully low positive, not low negative, but you go into recovery. Once you get over that heartache, or you come to terms with it, because sometimes you can never get over heartache, but you come to terms with it, your heart is stronger, is it not? Right? So the same with the so it happens with the emotions, happens physically, happens spiritually, right? And also happens fourth reservoir. Let me go from the beginning: emotional, intellectual, physical. Emotional, physical, intellectual, spiritual. Gosh, for a minute there, I thought I'm missing one, but I wasn't. I was looking for one that wasn't even there. That's why the brain couldn't find it. Little man running around my brain going, where's that piece of information? We'd already talked about the physical. It was our example. So too much recovery without stimulus or stress leads to atrophy or weakness. So in other words, atrophy is, let's go back to a muscle example. If you don't use a muscle, what happens is you get muscle atrophy. In other words, it shrivels and gets weak. So the same thing happens with our reservoirs. If we don't have the stimulus and the stress, if we have too much recovery, what happens is we get weak or atrophy. And in fact, I mean, it's one of my concerns for my team, right? They're spending a lot of time at home, with their families. If they are young, still living at home with mum and dad, they've maybe not got some of the financial worries that some of the rest of us have got. I mean, this is like they've died and gone to heaven. I mean, let me tell you, my dog, Bertie, has died and gone to heaven. Everyone's home all day, every day. And once a day, he gets to go on a long walk. I mean, right? And some people are feeling this. Now, when we then suddenly go, right, come on then, everyone, let's go back to work. How are we going to get some of these young people back into into a good rhythm? It's one of those conundrums that we really are going to have to think very, very carefully about. So, and I said earlier, I wanted to talk to you about these ultradian rhythms. So, ultradian rhythms, we were talking about earlier. Ultradian rhythms are rhythms of energy, right, which lasts for 24 hours. So the ultradian rhythm goes through the day and the sleep. It goes through the most physically demanding part of your day. It goes through the relaxing part of your day. And when we're able to connect all these things together with the ultradian rhythms, this is when we are really able to make the most, of ourselves to work at our best. Okay, and then the supercompensation theory is the theory that we were talking about with the muscle, right? Of breaking the muscle. So when we get really good at these stress recovery, what happens? All these aspects of ourself. all these aspects of herself, we're able to kind of use that super compensation theory. We're able to become really great leaders of ourselves and others. Okay, so how do we know if our reservoir is full or empty? Well, to be fully effective as a leader requires many dimensions. So it requires strength, it requires endurance, it requires flexibility, and it requires resilience. So this applies to all four of those reservoirs. Now, these are most easily recognized in the physical reservoir, but they're equally important in all of them. Let me give you an example. If we were to ask about these four aspects of physical, we would know that it means this. So physical strength is really the muscle, right? Our ability to kind of do something, as it were, whatever that physical thing might be. Endurance is over time, right? A range of motion is our flexibility, right? Flexibility, a range of motion. Our resilience is really, are we good under pressure? So that's the physical one. Here's the emotional reservoir. So when we talk about strength, have we got broad shoulders? Can we take, things on our shoulders when it's put there and we don't break down? Endurance is, can we be strong wave after wave after wave? Because I don't know about you, things barely come like one thing, they come wave after wave. So that shows our emotional endurance. When we talk about flexibility, we're really talking about understanding. So we were when we were making reference early to EQ, the emotional, right? That's really what we're talking about. The empathy, being able to live in somebody else's shoes. It's not the same as sympathy. A really important part. If somebody, let's say somebody loses we're going to use a relationship breaks up, right? A relationship breaks up. If we have sympathy with that person, all we're doing is we are jumping in the hole with them and we are basking in that grief with them, in that emotion, right? Because we're having sympathy. Oh, yes, I remember when I split up with my lover. I felt the same. This is not helping. Right, this is only validating and building on their feelings, and so therefore making them think that these are the right feelings to get to where they need to be. Now, empathy is different. So empathy is where we say to somebody, "I really understand how you feel. I've been there myself before." But this too will pass, or whatever it is that you're going to do to try and help somebody. These are feelings that you have to have. Eventually, you're going to move on to new feelings, right? And so the understanding is the flexibility. The resilience is the ability to bounce back. When we talk about intelligence, so intellectual, right? The strength is our intelligence. How intelligent are we? The endurance is our focus over time. The flexibility is our ability to be able to see different points of view and know that our point of view is not the only point of view. And the resilience is our ability to be a great communicator when it comes to intellectual things. And then when we look at spiritual, the strength is the deep commitment. The endurance is our values. So over a period of time, is that still the most important value to us, or has something else become more important? The flexibility is the tolerance, and the resilience is our ability to be true to ourselves, right? And so even when we're being influenced, we stay true to what we believe spiritually to be, our truth. I love that saying. I've been seeing going around, people are saying, you do you and I'll do me. I love it. That's a great example of that spiritualness. So I hope you found that interesting and helpful. I hope in there you've been able to recognize some things, some areas that you can do. Here now are coming some of the questions and answers. So Janine asked the question, how would you encourage your team to take advantage of online education in a way not to break furlough rules? Okay, really interesting. Furlough, the only thing, if your team are furloughed, they cannot undertake activity which generates income. However, they can undertake voluntarily any other activity. All right, so that's the only thing they can't do. So the question is, so you won't break furlough rules, okay? So put that to one side. As long as they're not generating income, it's okay. So, and I promise you that. I've only just the last couple of days, in fact, I'm sure the NHF put something about it on the 2nd, yesterday. So go and have a look. And if you don't want to just believe me, believe them. The more important question is, how do we get them to engage if they don't want to? And that is a little bit more difficult. When I did this on Monday, one of my managers actually was on, and so she was actually able to share that we'd identified somebody that wasn't engaging with us, and we're doing quizzes. We're doing tomorrow, Saturday. We've encouraged them not to do any work on Saturday or anything like that, but we've encouraged them to find something, because we know they'll all be clearing out their wardrobes, find something they want to swap, sell, or give away, and put it on our Facebook group, right? So we've encouraged them to do that, for an example, just so that we can keep people engaging. So there's all sorts of things they are doing. If you've got apprentices, you'll know that the Funding Skills Agency are really insisting that the apprentices are engaged and are being given, just like school kids are being given work, right? They're insisting that they are. So so back to the point, how do we get them? So what Elaine had put in, she reached out to this person and said, you're not taking part, why? It might be different reasons than we think. My answer to you would be, just keep reaching out to people, but try and get a balance of webinars and fun. I've really enjoyed our webinars, and the feedback we've been getting is great. So maybe once they do a webinar, maybe they'll feel differently about it, but it is good for them to do it. Carly did a great live earlier. I don't know if anybody saw that. Thank you. Declan has put up the information from the NHF. Thanks, Dec. How would you define a leader that would demoralise and not lead? Okay, so Michelle, I made reference to it on that particular slide. So a leader, put the question back. A leader, thank you. A leader that leads. I remember once, I'm going to tell you this story. I was having dinner with some of way back in my 365 days, with some of the 365 lecturers and Leslie. And one of the 365 lecturers said to Leslie, how do you know if you're a good leader? He said, look behind you and see who's following. He said, if no one's following you, that tells you something. And if you look behind at who's following and you don't like what you see, that tells you something too. So a good leader will look behind them and they'll love what they see. They're going to love the people. They're going to love what they're doing, etc., etc. Now, if that's not what your situation right now, you have to ask yourself, okay, how do I change this? Now, demoralizing people, telling doesn't work. Getting angry doesn't work. All these things do is demoralize people. Yeah, so we have to make things fun. We have to communicate what the purpose is, what we're all doing it for, what she or he, why are you coming to work every day, right? If you think someone's demoralized, what is it you're trying to achieve long term, right? And get tapped into what their goals are, what their purpose is. So, but I hope, you know, a lot of demoralizing people is when you are, in that high positive, or in the high negative, or even in the low negative. That's a leader will demoralize people if the leader is, that's where they are. What about sharing posts on social media? Sally Ann said that is not generating income. So there is no reason why you should not be posting on social media. You simply are. By the way, the other thing is too that what they have said is that even if you are a salon owner, a business owner who is furloughed, you still have a legal responsibility to undertake the business of, like, the work of the business. You have a legal responsibility. Okay, so sharing posts on social media is fine. The only thing you mustn't do is generate income. All right, that's furloughed people mustn't undertake tasks that generate income. Next question. Any more questions? Is that all we had? We can take any more if they come up, but if not, what if you're self-employed? Okay, if you're self-employed, then of course, you, from a grant point of view, hopefully you're coming under the self-employed grant. There are some people that are falling outside of that, and you absolutely can carry on doing what you are doing. Self-employed people are getting the grant even if they are still working. So, which may or may not be fair, but that's what's happening. So you can generate income. You're still going to get your grant. Hope I'm right in saying that. No, I've read it. I know I have, in the NHF, and I've read it in other places. And I've read a ton of info. That's why I just want to say at this point, you know, one of the reasons why I stopped. I'm only reading anything that's in the government or on the NHF, because I know that they are, the government is, like, they're holding all the cards right now. They say jump, we say how high, right? So the government or the NHF, because I know that the NHF do everything like really, like, legally and to the book, etc., etc. Is there a way of viewing the slides that you showed us? That's a really good question. It's one that we'll have to ask Declan what we'll be doing with those slides. Let me see what else we've got here. Declan's put in yes. So, Alex, there will be a way of viewing the slides. Actually, this is being recorded. And so I think there's a way of doing that too. If you go to the P4H Stylist hotline, that's where the slides are going to be. Okay, Sally Ann's got a question. I'm trying to connect with my clients every day. I can think, have you any advice? Okay, like our teams, some of our clients are going to be disengaged. Some of them, though, are going to be, you know, bored and lonely themselves. So if I've got some advice, if you've got clients that you know are on their own or vulnerable, it will really fill your spiritual reservoir to check in with them, give them a call. So do that. We've got some clients that we're doing that weekly, right? So that's good for them and it's good for you too. But, you know, just posting stuff up there. Keep the clients, for an example, we had team meetings this morning. So some of our posts today are about our team meeting, just so the clients know that we're still getting together. We're still thinking about work. We've got another post that's going up later on today. By all means, people, like, have a look, but it's basically the team of, they've made some, like, bits of, and it says, we miss our clients or something, and it's all different girls that have done something like that. That's going up later on today. You'll see it go up. Just things like that. That's actually probably more interesting to the clients than hair right now. Showing people nice hair is like taking the kids to the sweet shop and telling them they can't buy anything. Would you consider sharing ideas to motivate the team on another session? Are you asking me if I would share ideas to motivate the team on another session? Is that what you're asking, Janine? So you're asking for another session with some ideas for motivating the team. Okay, right. Interestingly, we've been asked a lot of people, can you do a webinar on this? Can you do a webinar on that? We'll do a webinar on anything, right? We can schedule a webinar at like 20 minutes notice. So yes, we'll do team motivation. I will tell you that my webinar for next Wednesday, no, what am I saying? Yes, next Wednesday, my webinar at 11 o'clock is going to be the seven mistakes businesses make in a crisis. It's going to be salon owners only. We're not going to let non-salon owners register. So if you're a salon owner on here, register for that one. I will tell you on Monday, there's a census webinar on, what's on Tuesday? Look on the P4H page and you'll see all the time stuff that we're doing. One of the things, try and get the team to see maybe the live, but okay, team motivation, we will do that one, I promise you. Mags said I'm a star. Thanks, Mags, I appreciate that. I think I've done all the questions. GMs have done a timetable for next week. Yes, thanks for reminding me about that, actually. And see if it's here quickly. Oh no, it's upstairs because I was working upstairs earlier. If you go on the right, we'll share it again. Do a timetable for the team. I'll share mine again, the feathers one. But if you go on the P4H stylist hotline, it's here. Here it is. No, it is here. Okay, I did this for the team, right? And that's what Matt's saying he's done for his team. And actually, things have changed. But on there, it's just recommendations that they all do. And some of it's really a lot of fun. Like, and you know, not everybody's been taking part. And that's okay. You can only do your best. And then you can reach out to individuals. But do a timetable for the team. But we will do a team motivation one. As we get closer to opening, you know, we're going to do more business ones too. But there is lots of other stuff for the team, right? There's, well, here's what we've got planned. We've got, what's Richard doing next week? Oh gosh, we've got Richard next week. Alex is asking what's on the timetable. Yeah, Richard's doing gents hair next week. We've got planned, we're going to be doing 8 essential steps. Yeah, barbering. Yeah, Nicole's doing 8 steps. We're going to be doing, yeah, that's on April the 14th. So look out for the dates. We're talking about them all the time and we're posting the stuff on there all the time. Share the links with the team. You can do that. Yeah, 8 essential steps, we're doing that. We're not doing any stripping. But maybe you mean colour correction, because we are going to be doing colour correction because you're going to need that one. No, we're not doing any of that. The next business bite is April the 8th, yes, which is Wednesday. So we're going to do lots of things. Keep in touch with us, not in the webinars, on the P4H Stylist Hotline and education page. If you want things, put them in there. If enough people want it, we'll do it. This webinar that we're doing right now is actually the one that we've had the least attendees, because it's the one that it's a repeat from Wednesday. So we already had like 70 people on Wednesday, 68 people on Wednesday. So this is and all of that. Alex has asked what's on the timetable. I'll give you a few examples. So today they all had a team meeting this morning in their teams. They did that by Zoom. Use Zoom. You can have up to 40 minutes for free. We Passion for Hair, we had a team meeting this morning on Zoom. This evening we've asked them to do something new, take a picture and send it into the team group. Tomorrow, I already told you, it says find something that you want to swap, give away or sell. But also because I want them to fill their spiritual reservoir there, I've told them to, they've got time, message or write to someone you haven't had contact with in the last week and who would love to hear from you. It can be their nan, you know, their auntie or something. Good time to write cards. Oh, Georgia said, we've asked for baby pictures. Yeah, because some of the ones with kids have been the ones that have found it hardest. So that's a good idea, getting the kids involved. Other things that are on here. One evening, on Wednesday evenings, we're doing a team quiz. I go live in the group. I ask questions, different questions for the apprentices to the stylists. I've posted the 2 that won a gift through the post. Hopefully when they get it, they'll open it. They'll put a picture on the group that they got it. But I just ask questions like, okay, here's one for the apprentices. The first one that types the answer wins. What are the 3 stages of hair growth, right? And then I put, and for the stylists, you've got to tell me what is happening during that hair growth cycle, right? So the apprentices went anagen, catagen, telogen, and then the stylists went growing, resting, shedding, right? And then we moved on to the next question. It took me about 20 minutes. On that particular session, 20 minutes, there was 167 comments from the team. There you go. There's a good one. Yeah, that's good. So, yeah, you just built a crossword for the team next week. That's great. That is really good. Anything like that. So, I think that's it. Hope to see you. We've got a thing up there, not on the Passion for Hairstylist hotline yet. Get involved. Click on that. I'm sure what it does is take you directly to the page. We have a lot going on. We want to keep connected. Miss you all. Love you all. I'm enjoying these webinars. I love your comments. I am missing your faces and your energy though. But now I'm going to go for a long walk and you go and do something to fill one of your reservoirs. See you next week.